We believe that you are now ready to receive from the voice. Allow us to introduce him now. Greetings, our Father.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Pastors, hear me on this one. Those of you listening at home, hear me on this one. You see, when you study the book of Galatians, talking about Abraham, who is our father. Galatians chapter 3, verse 7.
Thank you, Father. Galatians 3.
I'm preparing you for today's message. Yes.
Know ye therefore that they which are of faith,
law,
faith,
of law,
faith,
they which are of faith are,
the same are the children of Abraham.
if you are of faith, you are a child of Abraham. It is faith that makes you a descendant of Abraham, not the law. Okay?
Yes, Father. Yes, Father.
Because people who do not have an understanding of the things of God, they keep asking the same question that we keep addressing every single moment, that tithing is not an Old Testament practice. If it was practiced by Abraham, it wasn't practiced according to the law. It was practiced according to faith. It's a dispensation of faith, not law.
Hey.
And that dispensation of Abraham is not too different from our dispensation. There are similarities. It is almost like the same, but different. If you are of faith, you are Abraham's child.
Yes, Father.
Yes?
Yes, Father. And the scripture foreseeing
that
God would justify the heathen,
that God would justify the heathens, us, even the Gentiles. So he's not talking about only the Jews, the Israelites. No, even us. Look, he's addressing Abraham's dispensation of faith. And he's about to let you know the similarities between that dispensation and our dispensation in terms of the material, the message, the gospel preached then and being preached now. So that you understand it was the same dispensation, though different, in different zones. Okay, read it from the beginning again. They that are...
Know ye therefore...
You have to know. Don't be ignorant about this subject. Know ye therefore. Yes?
That they which are of faith...
If you are of faith, you are...
The same are the children of Abraham.
You are the children of Abraham, yes?
And the scripture foreseeing
prophetically, yes?
That God would justify the heathen.
At this point, they had not been justified as yet. But they are being justified. Gentiles, they are being justified even in Abraham. The man that we thought was only the father of the Jews. So how did God address the Gentiles before time? Yes?
Foreseeing that God would justify the heathen through faith.
Through what?
Faith.
Through what?
Faith.
Through the law.
Faith.
Through faith.
Yes, Father.
Through faith.
Yes, Father.
Yes?
Preached.
There was a preaching. There was a preaching There was a preaching. There was a preaching. If I had time, I would explain to you the man who brought the message to Abraham. There was a preaching, a New Testament gospel, which was preached during Abraham's time, because the Gentiles were already being addressed in him, in his loins. Hear what he's saying? Yes?
Preached before the gospel unto Abraham.
So the gospel was preached unto Abraham before. The gospel, the good news was preached unto Abraham. The message that we are hearing today as Gentiles, we are hearing it for the second time. It was preached unto Abraham. The gospel is not the message of the law. The law is not the gospel. The law is not the gospel. The gospel that we are now getting in the New Testament was gotten by Abraham, who was a similitude of this new covenant that we are in right now. What sort of a message was being preached back then? And there was a dark period in between where the law had to be introduced. And then that covenant had to be reinstated again. So if we are ever going to find tithe in that dispensation where the gospel of the New Testament was being preached, we must understand that tithe is not an Old Testament practice. Okay, keep on reading.
Preached before the gospel unto Abraham.
Preached before the gospel. So understand this. He's not saying preached before the gospel. No, preached before the gospel.
Right.
So the gospel was preached before. What we are dealing with now, what you think is the New Testament. There was a message preached. The gospel that we are dealing with today as the children of Abraham was preached to Abraham. The same message, not the law. Yes?
Preached before the gospel unto Abraham, saying, in thee shall all nations be blessed.
That gospel was preached unto Abraham.
Verse 9. So then they which be of faith are blessed with faithful Abraham. Whoa.
They that are of faith are blessed with faithful Abraham.
Wow.
You see now, if you are of faith, not of law, if you are of faith, so Abraham, whatever he did, somebody might ask, so how about sacrificing his son? Because he also did that in that dispensation. If you're saying we are under the same, should we be sacrificing our children? You must make a complete follow-up of that story, whether he eventually sacrificed his son. It was a picture of the Son of God, of the Lamb of God, where he declared on the mountain, upon the mountain of the Lord it shall be seen. It was all about the dramatization of the New Testament, the death of Jesus, who is the Lamb of God. And that Mount Moriah was the same place that Jesus finally was crucified. So that dramatization was done. It was a New Testament dramatization. So the tithe was in the New Testament. You see now, hear this part. So if you are of faith, you are blessed with Abraham, meaning the day that Abraham got blessed, that's when you got blessed. Not now. Back then, the message that is now being preached was preached back then. There was a man who came with that gospel to Abraham thousands of years ago and preached unto him about the blessings of God. And when he got blessed, Gentiles were in his loins. Like the Bible declares in Hebrews that even Levi paid tithe unto Melchizedek, whilst he was still in the loins of Abraham. So we have been practicing giving unto the Lord 10% from the beginning of time. So, if you are of Abraham, you then ought to practice what Abraham practiced. How do I explain that? At one point, Jesus said unto the children of Abraham, you are not his children. He said, if Abraham was your father, you wouldn't think of killing me. So he's saying, in Abraham's mind, because when he saw my day, he was so glad. But you seeing my day here, you are irritated by my presence. So how can you be Abraham's children? Your father was happy to see my day, but you are angry. So he's saying, when there is a difference in behavior, then you cannot claim to be the sons of a father who loved my presence.
John 8 verse 39. And they answered and said unto him, Abraham is our father. Jesus said unto them, if ye were Abraham's children, ye would do the works.
The what?
The works.
The what?
The works.
The what?
The works.
So he's questioning, he's testing their DNA. Proof that you are Abraham's child. I should have discovered the faith. I should have discovered the works. I should have found you tithing like your father Abraham. So if there are any differences that I can identify today, if there are no works of Abraham, you can't be then his children. So what qualifies you? We must see the faith that was in Abraham in you. It is that faith that entitles you to sonship.
Wow.
What does he say?
If ye were Abraham's children,
yes,
ye would do the works of Abraham. But now ye seek to kill me, a man that hath told you the truth, which I have heard of God. This did not Abraham.
Abraham did not do that.
Ye do the deeds of your father.
You see? So he's giving them another different father. Because it is never what you're doing, you guys, is against the faith of Abraham. So now we're being told in Galatians that if we are of faith, we are then Abraham's children. If we are then Abraham's children, we do the works of who? Abraham. And the works of Abraham were not according to the law. The works of Abraham were according to his faith. So the faith that was in Abraham, if it hits you today, the next thing that you do is you look for 10%. That was the same faith. He tithed according to the faith that he had. Which we have to have developed. When that faith matures and develops from Abraham's time, it goes beyond 10%. Because the Melchizedek was in a mysterious form. He had not fully manifested. So whatever was given to him was not a complete manifestation of tithe.
Strong funds.
And when we now have the complete manifestation, no longer a shadow of Christ, but the Melchizedek himself, what he ought to receive from us now is not the resemblance of 10%. It has to be the actual sowing. Wow. Because that faith from Abraham's time is improving. Okay. Let me get to the vision. Let me move away from this.
Father, teach us, Father, teach us.
I'm asking you people to understand how the blessing of God works. Malachi chapter 3, then I'll explain to you what I saw. Malachi chapter 3, verse 10.
Malachi 3 verse 10. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house. And prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven.
I want you to take note of that, because that's the part that I want to address now. I'm going to explain to you the windows of heaven. Because we are talking about contacting the blessing.
Yes, Father.
Take note of the windows. If you can underline that, it's up to you. Go ahead and underline the windows of heaven. The windows of heaven. What are those?
Yes, Father. Help us.
Because they are windows. And some people who do not believe in those windows still do believe in those windows. There is a man in the Bible who said, even if God is to open the windows of heaven, this thing that you have said that tomorrow about this time, that thing is never going to happen. And I'm going to explain to you what it means. Yes?
If I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that they shall not be room enough to receive.
To receive. Receive. You shall not have room enough to receive. There is a problem with the receiver. Not having room enough to receive.
Strong, Father.
4 October. You may think that you have room enough, but hear what I'm about to say now. I have to stretch you first. Then I make a deposit. Notice what the Bible is saying and what the Bible is not saying. I will open the windows, plural, of heaven and pour you out a blessing, not blessings. How can you have multiple windows and have only one blessing coming out? What is a blessing? Not blessings. A blessing. My brother, when you come into contact with the blessing, that outstanding blessing that comes out of multiple windows, yet it is one. I'm about to explain to you now the vision that I had. When you comprehend what I'm about to explain to you now, your struggle with demons is coming to an end. If you are to get this, what I'm about to offer to you now, follow this. The opening of the windows of heaven. What is happening there? What is happening there? Follow this. I'll be explaining to you the vision and giving you as it is, the way I saw it. But at the same time, try to explain. Bring it to your language. So that you can appreciate the experience that I had, and so that you know that the experience was not just for me, but it was beyond me. It was for millions of other people who believe in what I'm doing. This other day, I'm talking to the Great One. We are talking. I'm talking to him. He's hearing me. I'm hearing him. That's what you call prayer. Then the voice of the Lord departed. I was left alone, talking to him, but there was no response. And when I opened my eyes, two men stood before me. The description of the first man that I saw, he was of like pure and polished gold, his appearance. This man was standing on my right, and then I saw the other man who was standing on my left. This one there was like green light that was coming out of his body. He was like he had a green skin. Let me just try to put it in a way that people can understand. Now, I have two people standing right before me. I have two men. This one is of a refined, purest gold. You look at him, you can feel the purity of the gold without touching him. And here is another man. It's like he has light within him, but the light is coming out as green. Now they are standing right before me. Right at the center, I saw another man, but this man, his face was covered. And this man appeared like a mist, like steam. The parts that I could see were the hands, the feet, but the face was covered. And this man was like a cloud. His form was like a cloud. He was whitish. But I could see, I'll explain to you later about this man, what I saw. This man was at the center, on my right, the golden one. Here, there was the green man. But light was coming out of him. Then these two men began to talk to me. And the golden one said unto me, the great one has given us an instruction to take you to one of the heavens. Now I'm listening. I'm not sure. Am I still praying? Am I dreaming? What is happening? Now, the great one has instructed us to take you to one of the heavens. Now, I'm going to explain to you what I saw in brief. I told you I'm not that comfortable getting into these issues, but God gave me clearance that this is going to prepare the people, the Miriam, for the departure. Don't waste another heavenly resource by blessing people who do not have the capacity to receive. But prepare them with this message. There is a heaven in the heavens that contains a blessing. And I'm going to show you how it opens up and how you can come into contact with that blessing.
Thank you, Father. Thank you.
Now, suddenly the man at the center, who was like mist, like a cloud, he held me. The other hand was on my tummy, and the other hand was on my back. Pastors, I was taken up so swiftly. And I passed through different heavens. And then he took me to the foundation of the third heaven. The foundation of the third heaven. We got there having passed through two heavens. And each heaven, they did not delay. It was so fast. I would pass through one heaven into another heaven. But as we were ascending, information would be given to me by the green one. This one in God is the one who told me that we have been instructed to take you to one of the heavens. But as we were going, the green one told me, as we were passing through the two heavens, before we got to the foundation of the third heaven. I'll explain to you what he told me, how I saw it. Now, that's when I got to understand that there are certain heavens that you find in one heaven. That's when I realized what the Bible calls the heaven of heavens. That is when you get to one heaven that contains other heavens. Now, you know, Paul talks about a man 14 years ago, whether in the flesh or in the spirit, but that man was caught up into the third heaven, and he began to describe what seemed like a paradise. But before you get to that third heaven, you see, there are not 3 heavens, there are 7 heavens. So if Paul talks about the third heaven, that's where he ended. There are 7 heavens. Because whilst I was at the foundation of that third heaven, I could see the third heaven, but above the third heaven, I could see 3 other heavens above the third one, 3 other heavens, like 4 on top. Because I had been there before to those other heavens, my spirit longed to keep on ascending, and I was held at the foundation of the third heaven. But some people might want to also understand, what is it about the first and the second? Some of these heavens are so general. Some of these heavens that we call heaven, we start from the basic heaven. The heaven that we have in the Bible, where God renamed heaven, it was the firmament. Hear this. From the earth, God placed a firmament, a place between the waters to divide the waters. And then the waters below the firmament, he gathered them together and he called them seas. And the waters above the firmament remained above the firmament until the explanation that I gave you last time, during the flood of Noah, how that waters came down, right, being removed from above the firmament, right? Now, that firmament, he then made the birds to fly in heaven, and that heaven is the firmament, and he called that firmament heaven. So this space we have is heaven, but it's a lower dimension of heavens. So we have a heaven that is earthly. And this heaven that we have closer to the earth falls under the dimension of earth. Wow. It's an earthly heaven. So if you are ascending in the spirit, you must be sensitive enough to know the extent of the earth away from the earth. You get to a level where you feel like the earth is coming to an end, the influence of the earth in the heavens. Like all the birds that are flying, all the aeroplanes flying, they are flying within the regions of the earth. Earth doesn't end on the earth here. It extends into its heaven. There is a heaven that covers the earth, a dimension of heaven. So that heaven has its own layer where it ends, and you get into another heaven where you have the heavenly elements. There you can't find oxygen. But in a certain heaven, below that heaven, you have oxygen. Birds have to fly within a certain heaven. And in another dimension of heaven, birds, if they enter there, they die. A plane, if it is flying, it has to maintain a certain demarcation so that it doesn't exceed the heaven that is earthly. Because aeroplanes, they belong to the earth. They have to fly within the dimension of the earth, even in the heaven, in the sky. But that sky must be under the influence of the earth. So you have a heaven that is influenced by the earth. Natural laws are within that heaven. Are you following this?
Yes.
So, but all this information, I'm getting it whilst we are flying.
Wow.
That's not the heaven that he wants to explain to me.
Wow.
We have been ordered, instructed by the Great One to take you to one of the heavens. Now, I'm going to explain to you that heaven, that God at some point opens up for his people. And a blessing comes. I'm showing you this. I have to rush to the actual one. So above this one, which is closer to the earth, there is another heaven where you have the stars, you have the moon, you have the sun. It's another heaven. Now, in this heaven where you have oxygen, if you are to light a candle, it burns because of the oxygen. You take that candle up into another heaven where there is no oxygen, the fire goes off.
Yes, Father.
The fire dies in the absence of oxygen. And yet in that dimension where there is no oxygen, you have other lights that are burning by reason of the absence of oxygen. Stars are shining away from oxygen. If the candle from here gets into that heaven, it goes off. If a star falls from that heaven where it was shining to the earth, it goes off. So everything that God created was made compatible with its own heaven. So you have something that can shine here and not shine over there, and something that shines over there, if it drops to the ground, it dies down. Because these are things that the Great One created, and they were placed in their own jurisdiction, and they rule from that space. So there is that layer from the heavens, the heaven of the earth, the earthly heaven. And then you get to another heaven above the earthly one, where things of the earth are not allowed. If they go there, they can't stay long enough. If they are to survive, they have to carry natural laws from the earthly heaven. How do I explain this? That is why when they are going to the moon, they have to carry something from the earth that they spend. Before that material is overspent, they have to come back.
Yes, Father. Yes, yes, indeed.
And they have to be covered.
Yes, in gear.
And within that covering is the environment of the earth.
Yes, Father.
So they are not allowed to interact with that kind of heaven. So they must find a way of packaging the earthly dimension into that heavenly dimension. And they have to feed on that earthly dimension while it's in that heavenly dimension.
Yes.
And before they exhaust the earthly material while it's in the moon, they have to come back. Because they are not designed by God to survive there.
Yes.
And yet there are things that are living in that dimension. We are here to talk about contacting. I have contacted the blessing. So let me explain it to you.
Thank you, Father.
So now you get to the foundation of the third heaven. The foundation of the third heaven is below the third heaven and above the second heaven. Between the heavens, there ought to be a foundation. Each heaven has to sit on its separate foundation. And the foundation of the heaven above is the roof of another heaven below. So for you to penetrate some of these heavens, especially when you are to get to the seventh one, you need assistance. I'm telling you this because the way that I was carried by this angel at the center, holding my belly, and then the other hand was on my back. So he was like besides me, but carrying me. Now all along I'm receiving instructions from the green one. This one is quiet. The golden one is quiet. He only started talking when we got to that heaven that contains the blessing. But all along about these other heaven, as fast as we were flying, I was able to get information from him concerning these other heavens as we were going. But hear this. He was telling me we have passed the first foundation, the other foundation. So he was telling me about the foundations of the heavens. So when you look at those foundations, it's like, how do I explain it? There's a moment when you are flying through a zone where you're told this is the foundation of the heaven above. Now, whilst you're passing that phase, that place, they don't really want to call it heaven. And I was made to understand that the house is not the foundation. The foundation is not the house, but both are called house. So there is the foundation of the heaven, which is not the heaven, but it is called heaven.
Right.
Layers of heavens upon each other. But before you get into the heaven, you have to have passed through its foundation. And the things that you see in the foundation determines the prosperity of the heavens above. Like the earth, all the prosperity that you find on the surface of the earth, it's on the foundation. All the prosperity, the buildings, the cars, whatever you find, the prosperity of the earth came out of the foundation of the earth, which is the ground. Same applies with the heavens. Before you get into the heaven, you pass through the place where the raw material, what was used by God to create the success of that kingdom, it's within the foundation of that heaven. So like on the earth, we have diamonds, we have oil, we have gold, we have so many things on the earth, which determines the success, the prosperity of the earth. So we take our prosperity from the foundation onto the surface of the earth.
Right.
So when you're going up again into the heavens, as you pass through heavens, you have to pass through the foundation of the heaven, each heaven that you go through. So by passing through its foundation, you get to see the prosperity of the heaven even before you arrive there. You see the minerals, the riches of that heaven within the foundation. So I'm being told now, whilst we are now in that foundation, now the golden one is explaining to me all these things that you are seeing, the material. I saw materials that you can never imagine. You can never imagine. I thought I had arrived. And he told me, this is not paradise. Whilst you are in the foundation of the third heaven, you actually can see the roots of the trees within the foundations. The roots, just the roots. You would not want to depart from that foundation. And I had an opportunity to see even the roots of the tree of life. It was interwoven, it was covering, it was like every other tree in the garden was somehow connected. It was like a carpet. I said, what is this blanket? And he told me, this is the main tree in this heaven called paradise, where you have the tree of life It can never be found right now on the land of the living under the sun. It has been transferred to this dimension, waiting for the appropriate time. But every other tree, flower, grass in that area was somehow, it had to have a root that connects to the tree of life. You can see all that pattern above you whilst you're still in the foundation. I'm being held by this man. The reason why I'm talking to you about this man who never said anything. To me, that man became significant after the revelation. Because the next day, whilst I was taking a bath, it was my wife who told me that you have got a mark on your back. My own wife, she's the one who saw that. I had not seen it. I had to go and stand next to the mirror. And there was a mark, a hand on my back, like scratches. She's the one who saw that. It wasn't me. He never said anything. That this one only left a mark, just maybe so that I would understand the intensity of the experience. How can I sit here and lie and risk my integrity? I would want my wife in the future to believe me. Why would I lie on this one? Oh my God. Now, so I'm being shown what is in the foundation of the third heaven. Above us, I'm aware there is paradise because I'm receiving instructions from the golden one. The golden one is explaining to me the riches in that dimension. And then he told me something. He said, whilst we were coming up, did you see the openings? I said, I saw the openings. And what I saw was that it's like whilst you're walking within the foundations, you get to a portal where you have to bypass, you have to avoid it. It's an opening, as if you walk through, you will fall to the earth, into another heaven.
Wow.
So we're walking within the foundation, which was like perforated. It's a foundation. So many riches within there. Then there were openings. I'm talking about Malachi here. Whilst you are in that foundation, hear me, I could see names. The name of Abraham, I saw it. There's another name that I wrote after the revelation of a man. I asked, who is this one? He said, this is the man who lived before Abraham. And I said, what are these names doing here? I saw another name, this name of Malachi, but it was written messenger Malachi. And I said, what are these names doing here? And the golden one told me, anyone who ever saw this foundation, his name got imprinted. It was written on the foundation of this heaven. So you are seeing names in the foundation. At the same time, I'm seeing openings. My God. So whilst we came to another portal, an opening, which was like, you see, like these things that we have, these candles, you see those glasses, that opening. It's between. So we got to one place where he allowed me to peep. So I looked in, I looked down, and I could look up. When I looked up, I could see individuals. When I looked down, I could also see individuals. Looking up, you see people wearing magnificent gowns, coverings, but you are seeing them from under the feet. Looking down, I could see the heads of people. Then whilst I was standing there, the golden one said to me, notice there are two lines. So there were like two lines passing through that foundation. Hear this part. These two lines were like made of cotton, like they were threads. You have a line here, you have a line here, but above there is a person, below there is another person. And then I said, what is happening here? That's when I was also told there are multitudes upon multitudes already in paradise, but still alive on the earth. So Each hall that you look until you look up, you see where they are seated in heavenly places with Christ. Down there, that's their physical appearance. But the people that you see down there don't have an understanding of the people up here. So they are existing in two different dimensions at the same time. And I said, what are these two ropes going down, from each person going down? He told me one thread takes things up and another thread takes things down. And I was reminded, you have heard of the windows of heaven. The blessings that will come down through the windows of heaven. It is when the spirit man seated in the heavenly places is able to transact and to allow the grace of the Lord to be transmitted to the physical man on the earth. And I said, how about the other line? He said, every good thing that is done by the physical man on the earth, the giving. This line deals with the deposits. This line is what is going to determine the wealthy, the riches of a man when he eventually gets into paradise. Everything that is being done good, being given on the earth, determines what you're going to have in the heaven. So you have one thing, which is one line, which is releasing some things. So when I looked at these threads, some were wide, some were very thin, and on certain openings, there were no lines at all. And I was asking, how come here there are no lines? Said, these are people that some of them are born again, but there is no physical activity on the earth. No good is coming up, and no unction from the spirit man that is born again that is going down. So they are living miserable lives, no supernatural experiences. So I'm being told, don't say, how do you know all these things? I don't know all these things because I'm being told by the golden man. And the information when he's talking to you, my God. So I'm being told now, we are in this foundation. Above you, you have paradise. Seated in heavenly places. But below there was another layer. If I wish I had time, I would explain to you the layer.
Please, Father.
The layer where you have principalities and powers. But you see, that's where they tamper with those ropes. I wish I had time to explain. I said some ropes were so big, some were very thin, and on certain portals there were no ropes at all. And I was told the people above are born again. They are born again, but no activity. So their spirituality cannot sustain their physical existence. And nothing is happening on the earth, which means there is no investment into paradise, into the heavens. I know you want me to talk about scriptures and so on, but I have to tell you my experiences.
Thank you, Father. Thank you.
We have been to strange places. This is why I have to share this with you. So, I'm there seeking information. Now I'm being moved. At first, it was upward. Now it's sideways. I'm being moved by that man who is holding me from one portal to the next portal to another portal. And these lines are so visible. I can see all the way down. These lines passing through other foundations going to the earth. And then I'm being reminded, whilst I'm there, how Jesus, our Lord, after he came out of the river, having baptized by John, the Bible declares that in the heavens opened, and a voice came out of heaven It doesn't say the heaven opened. It says the heavens opened. Different layers of heavens opened. Then a voice from one heaven came down. An opening was created. Before he could start ministering on the earth successfully, without being robbed of his earthly benefits and blessings, the heavens had to be opened first. And I'm being told most of the people on the earth, though born again, they are operating, functioning under closed heavens. Because there are no lines of communication. He did not preach Jesus. He did not minister until there was the opening of his heavens. Because he needed the Jesus above to sustain the Jesus below. That is why he said to Nicodemus, the Son of God, who is in heaven, whilst he was here on earth. A part of you that is in paradise right now, that is seated in heavenly places, is finding it so hard to communicate with the physical you. I'm being shown all these things and how riches come down. I will open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing. And God is saying, you will not have room enough. It means what you have there in terms of resources. When the man above begins to transact with the man below, when the two of you come into contact, you have the manifestation of a blessing. When the two of you, when those lines are connected, are established by good works, anything good that you can do. Saluting an elderly, that's a seed. Giving someone an advice, that's a seed. Showing someone the path, warning an individual, that's a seed. Every good way, it's not just money. Every good thing that you do, it's a deposit that registers in the heavens. Now I'm showing you the name of Messenger Malachi was there in the foundation. That's how I got to know. This is how he saw the heavens opening up and promising God's people that he will open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing. Most of you are operating under a closed heaven. Thank you so much for having me. So you can go ahead.
Thank you, Father.
I have to leave you at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Father.